We now want to go to our national reporter, Evan Koslof.
The winners of these primaries were exactly what we expected. It was the frontrunners, President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump. Let's talk about what's at stake here. You mentioned the 15 states and the territory. You're now looking on your screen there at them, including the big states with a lot of delegates, including Texas and California. So let's run through some of the results. First, starting with Virginia. It's now been hours since polls closed there. This is a state that leans blue, especially national elections. You can see there, he's got some 88.5% of the vote. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Republicans, where right now, former President Donald Trump is leading the pack, 63.3% of the votes. Next, let's move to North Carolina. This is way more of a swing state. And right now, as you can see, President Biden has 87.9%. And yet, nearly 70,000 people there voted for no preference. We got to lock that away and think about that.
What other primaries are you watching across the country?
Let's dive into North Carolina, though. There's an interesting race there to try and replace the governor there, who's been term limited. That's Roy Cooper. And right now, as you can see on the Democratic side, Josh Stein is leading the way. That's the Attorney General over there.
You look at Nikki Haley. What's the path forward for her?
She's been saying along the way that she wants this to be an election, not a coronation, and she wanted the people to speak. But now we've actually had millions of people speak. It just comes down to the money. In a lot of ways, as long as the money pours in, she could stay in the race. She brought in $28 million in January and February. The question is, will that money dry up? Well, I think there are really two ways to look at the results tonight. Of course, if you just look by the delegate count, it was a very good night for the two frontrunners. But there is another way to look at this, because there are some vulnerabilities and some weaknesses if you look at both of their results tonight. Of course, for Donald Trump, the big problem right now is Nikki Haley, who's just continued to be a thorn in his side. It is a question of whether these voters will come home. Will they come back to former President Donald Trump when it comes to the general election? And there's really the same exact question on the other side of the ticket. If you look at some of these numbers, for example, Virginia, a swing state that leans blue, over 11% voted for Marianne Williamson or Dean Phillips. In North Carolina, another swing state, 12.5% voted for no preference. The question is, these are protest votes. When we get to the general election, will they come back? Will they stay on the couch? These are open questions.